Let's talk about Sophie Cunningham. Her latest episode of the Show Me Something podcast, go subscribe, has come out, and whoa, she keeps it real about the state of the team defensively. She also talks about the Alyssa Thomas, Caitlin Clark fiasco and what the hell's going on in the league. Like, why does she keep getting targeted? And she also slams the league for not marketing Caitlin Clark.
On her own podcast, a current WNBA player recently took a microphone and attacked her own league. Sophie Cunningham had nothing back about the referees doing nothing, Caitlin Clark being cheap shot, and a league that left its most stand out on its own poster. Knowing that she might be penalized, she described it as an outright joke. You had better fasten your seatbelt. Before we get started, let me be clear, is Sophie a hero for speaking up when no one else will, or did she rip too much? Both her own league and her own team posted in the comments. This is what transpired. Sophie Cunningham released afresh. In an episode of her podcast, Show Me Something, she lighted a match and hurled it in place of the customary safe player discourse. In her own league. A current WNBA signed player who is still on the roster and receiving compensation sat there and referred to the entire process as a farce that hardly ever occurs. The shield is guarded by players. Hold my drink, Sophie said.
During real time last night, I did not see that happen. I don't, none of our team saw it happen, because I promise you if we would have seen that happen, we would have had her back. Unfortunately, this type of shit happens every single game to her, and the league and the refs do absolutely nothing.
Concerning it, the elephant that no one in a jersey wants to name was the first thing she pursued. Caitlin Clark was the objective. She didn't sidestep it. According to her, athletes are openly pursuing Clark, and the league and referees do the same. Nothing at all to keep her safe. It was her words, not mine. She gestured to the footage of Clark being cheap shot and kneed in the throat and essentially stated, we would be incensed if someone did that to any of our other teammates. However, because it is Clark, it simply occurs game after game as everyone ignores it.
We have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had two cheap shots right there that weren't called. And I just say again, absolutely unacceptable.
You see the videos of Alyssa Thomas, like, literally kneeing and cheap shotting C in the throat. Like, if she did that to any of our teammates, we'd be pissed. They're definitely targeting her, and the league and the refs do nothing to protect her.
People are fucking rough with her. Like, there's no other way around it. Does that fuck with you guys as a team, or is that just an incident that becomes a much bigger deal on the internet than it does during real time?
During real time last night, I did not see that happen. None of our team saw it happen, because I promise you if we would have seen that happen, we would have had her back. Unfortunately, this type of shit happens every single game to her, and the league and the refs do absolutely nothing.
This particular detail truly illustrates how commonplace this has become. Sophie acknowledged that she and the throat shot was not even visible to teammates in real time. They missed it because they were on the ground. Consider that. She claimed that they would have had Clark's back right away if they had seen it. However, the difficult things happen frequently, and so quickly that her teammates are unable to witness everything as it occurs. It wasn't a terrible night. That pattern is so consistent that disappears into the backdrop.
And she also slams the league for not marketing Caitlin Clark. You know, we was talking about that poster, and there is potentially a thing involving licensing as to why she's not on that poster. But I did get to thinking about something else that made me go, well, hold on now. Diana Taurasi's not on there. Candace Parker's not on there. Sue Bird is not on. If you're doing a 30th anniversary, why are those guys? It's so random. Even Sophie's like, why the fuck am I on this calendar or this poster? Why am I on there? You know, it doesn't make any sense. Why isn't, Aaliyah Boston on there or somebody like that? It's pretty crazy. And she just says it. You know, if I was the league, I'm putting Caitlin Clark on everything, basically.
She then reached the portion that truly ignited the internet, the poster. The WNBA released this large commemorative illustration to commemorate the league's 30th anniversary. A significant achievement. A festivity, and in some way, the sport's biggest name has ever created. The athlete, drawing unprecedented audiences and ratings, was left out. It doesn't include Caitlin Clark. Who is on it? Do you know? Cunningham, Sophie. In addition to names like Angel Reese and Paige Buchers, excellent players. Yes, however, Sophie asked herself, why in the world am I on this thing and Clark is not, after seeing that. I adore that bit. Sophie didn't give herself a pat on the back with it, she made fun of the league by using her own space on the poster. Her argument was straightforward: when creating a visual to market your league for 30 years, you should put your best feature front and center. And the middle, you don't remove her and replace her with a role player. Her remarks were direct. It's a joke. It's a joke. This is precisely why Kathy Engelbert and the WNBA are getting burned up on social media, she added. Because you replaced the greatest player to have ever entered this league, a generational talent, with arbitrary names. The quiet bit, which the suits never like to hear, was then said aloud by her. If they were intelligent, they would sell their idols' lives, she claimed, but they don't. She made a list of who ought to be all over the place. Real draws include Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston. Rather, the league continues to push forgettable chooses to be in the spotlight, but when the marketing fails, he seems perplexed. She stated unequivocally that it makes no reason, and that they would place the people that fans genuinely want to see in front if they were truly attempting to generate money. Basic business, you know. To be fair, there is one theory that has been proposed to explain Clark's disappearance from the poster. A potential licensing or picture rights problem has been identified by some as the type of documentation that can prevent a player from purchasing official merchandise, perhaps, but even in that case, the league is still held accountable. It is your responsibility to resolve any legal issues that prevent your single biggest star from attending your 30-year celebration. Yesterday, not to put a few role players on the graphic, shrug, and call it a day. An actual marketing department relocate mountains for such a draw. Apparently, this one was incapable of moving a pen, and this is the reality of business. The league continues to disregard the engine as Clark. Buildings fill up and TV ratings rise when she performs. You can sense the air leaving the room when she sits. That is what the attendance and ratings continue to appear to. Therefore, excluding her from the marketing is not a harmless mistake. It is actively deciding to make intentionally spend less money. This is the only major league in the world that would bury its greatest draw. Give that some time to settle. The league's marketing tasks are being completed by a player on the roster, live on a podcast for free, outperforming those who are paid to do it. What's the crazy cherry on top? There's a good probability the league will change its mind and penalize her for saying it. In a nutshell, that is the WNBA. At this moment, rather than correcting the things the player is telling the truth about, punish her for doing so. Let me now take a step back and explain through the chaos that caused this entire situation, since the background makes Sophie's rant land much more intensely. All of this relates to the Fever's Wednesday matchup with the Phoenix Mercury. June 24. Alyssa Thomas struck Caitlin Clark in the throat with her fist during the game. In actual time, nothing was called by the referees. Play on, no flagrant, no whistle. Only after the game, when the video became viral, that after reviewing it, the league gave Thomas a flagrant 2. And now for the penalty. That turns the entire situation into a joke. Alyssa Thomas received a 1-game suspension for punching another player in the throat. Suspension and a $1,000.1000 fine. These athletes compete professionally. Couch is $1,000 fine. Cushion funds, you may lose $1,000, sit through 1 game, throat punch the league's face, and return to the court before the bruising goes away. The message was lost in the mail if the intention was to convey that this would not be accepted. And consider what a flagrant 2 often entails. You are immediately removed from the game after such call. No inquiries, however, since there were no officials present. Thomas ended the evening like it never occurred, and the penalty didn't become apparent until the internet wouldn't allow the video to expire. Thus, it was missed by the system caught it out of embarrassment. The players throughout the league were able to distinguish between those two quite different things. However, the throat shot wasn't even the only thing Clark left behind that evening. She also had a back issue as she departed the game when attempting a 3-point shot. When Valerian Ayayi of Phoenix failed to provide her with a clear landing area, Clark landed on Ayayi's foot and crumpled. Seizing her back, even after a look, they refused to raise it from a personal foul to a reckless closeout. The biggest celebrity in the sport, therefore, suffered a cheap hit to the throat and a risky closeout under her feet in 1 game. And both were shrugged aside by the officials. Clark ultimately missed the Los Angeles Sparks' subsequent game, with her coach stating that a return schedule is not available. Furthermore, Sophie is not the only one raising the alarm. Stephanie White, the head coach of the Fever, also lost it. She informed the media that they have a superstar and a generational talent who took 2 cheap shots that weren't called, and she stated it was completely inappropriate that nothing was done. When both your head coach and your favorite guard are openly that is not a pair of hot takes in the same week. It's obvious that the locker room has had enough. Sophie now pointed at more than just the Finger outward, she turned the heat on her own squad as well, so give her credit, she immediately stated the. Everyone is already aware of how terrible Fever's defense is, the difficult part is that the numbers support her. The Fever are now ranked 11th and 8th in the season, every game, they give up about 90 points. In that stew of mercury. They allowed Phoenix to score in the triple digits, roughly 111 points, against a squad that typically averages closer to 80 points. Yes, the defense is the issue when you allow an 80-point offense to score 111 points against you. Here's the spicy twist. In that, the head coach of the Fever is expected to be a defensive thinker. Thus, when Sophie claims that everyone is aware of how terrible the defense is. Whether she intends to or not, she is blaming the coaching staff for it. A player is yelling out the. Precisely what her coach is renowned for. She was honest, but don't misunderstand, that's throwing the bench boss. In a public podcast, under the bus, sincere, of course, uncomfortable throughout the next filming, absolutely, too. The data also reveal more, with almost 24 personal fouls per game, the Fever also topped the league in this category. That is a team that continuously destroys its own momentum by sending opponents to the free throw line. Despite playing primarily off the bench, Sophie's individual scoring has decreased to roughly 5.3 points over her last 3 games. Therefore, this is not a player who is riding high and giving lectures to everyone, this person is in the midst of a grind. Acknowledging the shortcomings of both her team and the league, people listen to her because of that combination of honesty. It's also important to note that Sophie wasn't just whining, she sounded hopeful despite all the poison. Concerning the group, according to her, the Fever has enormous potential but hasn't yet reached its full potential. That they are in the grind, attempting to determine what needs to be given, and thus, the player did not quit. On her team, someone was upset because she could sense this group's potential if they ever locked in on defense. That's what causes honesty to prevail rather than resentment. Meanwhile, the fans aren't really cooling things down. Down as well. One of the fiercest WNBA discussions of the week resulted from the poster snub, and the league was ridiculed for the omission on social media. Include the ridiculous throat shot video that is doing the rounds. Fine, and you have fans openly questioning whether the league's administrators truly comprehend what they are seated. In the same week, when your own players and supporters say the same thing. That is not an outspoken minority. That's the space. The pointing motif is also essential to telling this tale. Since Sophie is at her best. A few nights prior, the Fever defeated the Mercury 86-77 in a game. She just pointed at Phoenix veteran Duana Bonner after they got into an argument. That's it. 1 point. Additionally, it exploded into one of the week's top memes. Sophie's interpretation was brilliant. She claimed that the weakest part was the technical foul she received for it. She had ever seen in her life, that she simply pointed while Bonner lost her temper without uttering a single word. 1 point. A technical. A fist to the throat, however, has no immediate effect, the priorities are self-written. Knowing that these two teams actually dislike one another at the moment is also helpful. That moment of pointing emerged of genuine conflict, requiring Bonner to be restrained throughout the match. Thus, the Fever and the Mercury have been chippy for weeks, and Clark consistently finds himself in the wrong position. At Bonner, the point was a little spark. The explosion occurred a few nights after the throat shot. Take a step back and consider the whole picture. Then you begin to understand why fans are upset. There is a once-in-a-generation star in the league, she packs arenas. No one in this sport has ever moved the TV numbers like she does. Additionally, the league handles that gift by allowing rivals to tee off on her, give her wrist slaps for $1,000, exclude her from the anniversary banner, and keep her face off the advertisement. That might be printing money. It's like to hitting oil and then whining about not being able to pay gas, and that is the true cause of Sophie's rant hit so hard. It wasn't an outsider on a hot take program. It was a current player, a teammate, and someone who had everything to lose. And a fine is probably on the horizon, stating the obvious, the building's biggest star is being mistreated and disregarded. At the same time, and those in authority are constantly coming up with new ways to mishandle their most valuable asset ever possessed. Naturally, Clark is the only one remaining silent while it all. That's just the way she works. She avoids making herself the center of attention off the court, puts her head down, and lets her game talk. In a vacuum, this is commendable. However, when you are the most well-known figure in the sport's history, someone must speak up when the league refuses to. That someone last week was Sophie Cunningham, who had a podcast, a microphone, and no filter. And to be honest, rather than grabbing the fine printer, the league ought to be taking notes. Something seems almost humorous on how Sophie came to represent the entire situation. She is the week's meme, a guard who just came off the bench, and a name on a poster that she publicly believes she has no right to be on. Nevertheless, she is the one making the delivery. The most candid league appraisal in years that anyone has heard. The commissioner remained silent, the stars remain tactful. And the energy guard, who has nothing to lose, just states it. Behavior of the main character. Thus, that is the current situation. A marketing strategy that disregards a star being beaten without any defense, a defense being destroyed without any replies. Its own treasure trove, as well as a guard who decided she was tired of being courteous about everything. Sophie stated that many people have been contemplating, and she acknowledged that it could be detrimental to her. A spine is required for that. Now, the question is if anyone. Is the league office genuinely paying attention, or are they too preoccupied with determining how much to penalize her for being correct? Thus, a single bench guard with a microphone effectively marketed the league and called out its referees. Compared to those who are compensated for it, whether anyone in authority is paying attention is the question. What are your thoughts? Is Sophie correct or inappropriate? For more, let me know in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe.